Story 1. I came here for ideas. It turns out I do not want to do any of them because I am soft. Story 2. Biohazard remediation. We service vehicles, airplanes, semis, and other mobile units. Rates: $175 to $275 per hour. We handle work that no one else will do. Fentanyl contamination, severe rat and insect infestations, mold, severe odors, blood and body parts throughout the vehicle. Viral remediation for hepatitis C, human immunodeficiency virus, hantavirus, and coronavirus disease 2019 following a death. Update: I am receiving many messages. If I can post pictures here, I will post the less graphic ones. Crime scene photos would be flagged. Story 3. I have friends who work on oil rigs. All are divorced or headed that way. They are neither happy nor healthy. Story 4. The captain makes $1,000 a day. We sail 163 or more days a year. We spend a lot of time away and endure a great deal of rough weather. I earn $100,000 a year, which is less than the captain's pay. Story 5. The white-collar answer is tax attorney. Boring, tedious work even for the average lawyer. My dad made Scrooge McDuck's money practicing as one and told me that the secret to his success was being good at a job no other lawyer wanted. Story 6. I used to work at a nuclear power station. I was in information technology, not engineering. I will never forget how much of a fuss was made when, during a scheduled outage, they had to fly a specialist in from halfway around the world and pay him a large sum of money to perform underwater welding in the reactor pool. There are probably very few people qualified for that work, so the specialist could name his price. Story 7. Live cable splicing at an underground mine pays very well. Companies will fly you anywhere in the world to do it because so few people are able and willing. On the more accessible end, an underground driller earns 120 to 150,000 Australian dollars per year while in training and typically works roughly 6 months annually. Earnings rise to 180 to 220,000 Australian dollars once you obtain your ticket or certification. Story 8. Underwater oil rig welders perform extremely dangerous work. They can earn $100,000 or more per year, plus hazard pay. They spend 2/3 of their day in meetings, checking gear and planning work. Saturation divers can earn up to $300,000 per year, but they sometimes live in pressurized chambers for a month at a time. Shift schedules vary. Typical rotations are 2 or 3 months on followed by 2 or 3 weeks off. Some rotations are 2 months on and 2 months off. Story 9. I remember a few years ago someone mentioned crime scene cleanup. He said he could set his rate and it was absurd, $250 an hour. The problem was when his crew had to clean up a body. He said they usually did not stay after having to clean the remains of a child from the highway. There was a time I thought I could do it, back when the Watch People Die subreddit still existed, but I do not think I can now. Story 10. My job is tree planting. I make around $500 a day with no high school diploma or driver's license. I have to plant trees extremely fast uphill in 30 degrees Celsius weather while getting eaten by flies. Story 11. System operators work on the power grid. Pay starts at about $100,000 per year for entry-level positions, and the average mid-career salary is $150,000 to $200,000 per year. 12-hour rotating shift work drives many people away. Story 12. Saturation divers who work in the North Sea oil fields are absolute soldiers. Story 13. My husband makes $140,000 a year after 8 years as a garbage collector for waste management in Seattle. Story 14. I make $200,000 as a gold miner. I have lots of time off and am home every day, but the days and nights I work are long. Story 15. Medical doctor in Outback Australia making up to $1 million a year. In 2023, the rural Western Australian town Quirating offered a package of up to $1 million to attract a general practitioner after its only doctor left. The package included a cash injection from the Shire, a fully equipped clinic, and a rent-free 4-bedroom house. This was part of a broader trend of rural communities struggling to attract and retain general practitioners. Story 16. Linemen crawl up high-voltage lines and are not afraid of heights when performing electrical work outdoors. Story 17. I once met a locksmith who said that after learning the trade he would be set for life because most people won't take the time to apprentice in this field. The work can be tedious and requires many on-call hours, but it becomes very lucrative at that level of expertise. Story 18. Not sure if this is still the case, but it used to be that you'd be well-positioned working with the advanced RISC machine architecture. It was insanely tedious changing values bit by bit, and the integrated development environment that was used, Keel, felt like the devil. I remember spending 48 hours troubleshooting a program that wouldn't do anything because one bit was off. I was decent at it because I put in the hours, and my professor told me he could recommend me for a posting at $300,000 a year. It was in the middle of nowhere with zero growth prospects, and I opted to take something paying about 1/6 of that. I do not regret the decision. Story 19. I do scuba diving for the police in Canada. They hire me to search for bodies in rivers so muddy that I cannot see anything. I search by touch. Nothing is more disturbing than finding a decomposing body by sinking your thumb through a rotting eye socket and feeling inside a human skull before realizing it is a body. $600,000 per year and not worth it. I got into it because I wanted to be an underwater welder. The money is better doing this and I got sucked in. It is truly horrifying. When you can only see 3 inches in front of you, you get your eyes very close to decomposed faces to see what you were just touching. It is haunting. I do not recommend it. I often think I would rather be homeless. Story 20. Newborn care specialist around the clock positions. You work continuously for 3 months during a baby's first 3 months of life as a live-in caregiver. Travel is provided, and pay is $1,000 per day. I am currently in training to become one. I have seen postings for $100,000 for 3 months with my agency. Story 21. A friend of mine has a degree in poultry science. He got a job right out of college making today's equivalent of $204,000 per year. The catch was 12-hour days, 5 days a week, with a third of the time spent cleaning out the sluice bin from inside. He was told on his first day that he would get salmonella, and that the worst thing to do would be to take antibiotics for it. The company said that building up a natural immunity is better in the long run for that line of work. The average employee in his position contracted salmonella 4 or 5 times and then never again. He said there is no smell worse than the hot entrails of a chicken, and he refuses to eat chicken to this day. Story 22. The railroad lifestyle and the threat of layoffs are horrendous. Story 23. Elevator mechanics look simple from the hallway, but the work requires years of apprenticeship, adherence to strict safety codes, handling high voltage, and working over open shafts, so the pay is significant. Story 24. Enterprise resource planning consultants. I do not have a degree in a field related to technology or finance, but I passed Oracle NetSuite certifications and taught myself basic accounting and structured query language. I was earning $130,000 in my second year. I work fully remotely and pick up my children from school. It was the best career transition ever. Story 25. Sewage treatment plant divers using self-contained underwater breathing apparatus need to remove the flushable wipes from the intake screens. Story 26. I hear oil rig workers or anyone in that industry who actually pulls oil out of the ground are paid well over $100,000 to start, but it is very dangerous. Crab fishermen are paid well too, and there is a whole show about that. Story 27. Canadian National Railway pays well, I have heard. However, their union requires you to be ready to go within 3 hours of being called, and they may have you work 24 hours straight. I know a man who once took home $10,000 in a single paycheck because he was being worked so hard. He said everyone there is either depressed or divorced, and I refused to do it for that reason. Story 28. A professor at my university once told me to learn common business-oriented language and I would retire young. I wish I had followed that advice. Programmers who work with common business-oriented language earn upwards of $300,000 per year, and the work mostly involves maintaining legacy systems. Most of those programmers are approaching retirement, so companies are starting to look for replacements. Story 29. Air traffic control involves operators looking at a radar screen indoors. The presentation is not as polished as flight tracker apps. Story 30. I am not sure you can make a full-time living doing it, but being a balloon twister is a pretty good side hustle. Experienced twisters are booked months in advance for weekend work. I am a hobby twister with no established business, just the occasional birthday party or festival, and I charge $100 per hour. Experienced professionals charge more. Overhead costs are not large, just balloons and transportation. I am not sure there are enough weekday clients to make it a full-time job. Story 31. I made my fortune as a consulting engineer. While a colleague never left the office, I volunteered for everything. In Mexico City, I had a driver, fixer, and bodyguard. In rural Egypt, I went everywhere with a driver, interpreter, and a police escort. Seeing the police lights from my car made me realize how the engineer always ends up being held hostage. After clearing the order books for Central America and the Middle East over 15 years, all the work was coming from Central Africa. I quit and retired to an island in the South Pacific. Story 32. I briefly worked moving women who were leaving their husbands. We once cleaned out a 5-bedroom house after the husband left for work and before he came home, with 2 full moving trucks. As we were nearly finished, the woman became nervous and started yelling. Mind you, we were working as fast as possible. Then she yelled that he would shoot us all in the fucking head if we were there when he arrived. The other men said he was a shady Italian guy, maybe in the mob. Jesus Christ, this was not what I signed up for. We then drove for an hour, unloaded in a sketchy area, and left. I thought, this is not a business for me. Story 33. A diver who inspects dams in the muddy rivers of the southern United States must rely entirely on touch because the water is so murky. Gigantic catfish will regularly try to swallow a diver headfirst. They are large enough that they can and do fit a person's head in their mouths. I have read that few people last long in that job. Story 34. A high-level politician must be entirely devoid of morals and conscience. The higher the level, the more depraved acts they have almost certainly committed. Story 35. I'm not sure how reluctant people are to try it. Harbor pilots may be an example. In addition to guiding huge ships into crowded ports without colliding with other vessels or the pier, transferring from a small boat to a ship is harrowing. Harbor pilots can be killed by being crushed between 2 vessels during the transfer. Story 36. I earn approximately $80,000 per year administering medications at a jail. We have a very high staff turnover rate because of the long hours and heavy patient load. The pay is not absurdly high, but it is at least $10 more per hour than I would make working in a hospital or a long-term care facility as a licensed practical nurse. Story 37. Air traffic controller. It has been studied and named the most stressful job in the world. It has the highest rate of early retirement due to burnout. Story 38. Anything that involves traveling. Money is great at first, but reality sets in. Eventually you do not have a home, and it is hard to establish a steady life. Go in, make the money, and get out. Story 39. Sanitation. If you get a job with the state or federal government, you receive very good benefits and a pension. Apparently, sanitation workers in New York City make a killing. Story 40. The pay gap in these jobs is essentially hazard pay for your soul. Money piles high where life expectancy, marriage rates, and mental well-being are low. Most people want money without scars, so the few who accept the risks receive higher pay. Story 41. I saw the happiest hospital janitor this weekend. He was in his 20s, and all the nurses were ogling him behind his back. It dawned on me that he probably makes good money and has many sexual partners because no one else will sweep the floors in an intensive care unit. Story 42. I knew a man who worked as an offshore underwater welder. He was wild. He made so much money that when he was back on shore, he would sit at the bar where I worked and buy drinks for people all night. I think he had more money than he knew what to do with. He was a solid person overall, but he had a look in his eyes as if he might snap at any moment. Story 43. Common business-oriented language developer. It is a very old programming language that is largely obsolete and has not been used for at least 20 years. It is also difficult to work with and few people like it. Most banks in my region built their backbone using common business-oriented language. It is stable and mostly functional but unmaintainable. No one in the company understands what does what, how it works, or where to look when a change is needed. You want at least one person who can maintain it, but more importantly, that person should port the code to another language. That is tricky and risky, and as long as someone can maintain the common business-oriented language code, there is little incentive to upgrade it. These specialists are increasingly hard to find. I have seen offers exceeding €60,000 per year for junior, entry-level positions with no experience required. That pay is extremely high. An acquaintance took such a job straight out of university, earned more than anyone I know within a couple of years, and left quickly because she could not stand it. It is reportedly boring, frustrating, and unpleasant to work with, so much so that even life-changing pay at a young age often does not keep people in those roles. Story 44, Tower Climbers. Just you, a harness, a job to do, and a drop of 100 to 2,000 feet. Story 45. Union electric and gas utility workers. Linemen make great wages but earn every penny. Residential and commercial gas fitters do as well. Story 46. Commercial diving. I am not sure whether people are unwilling to do it, but it is one of, if not the most dangerous jobs on Earth. Cutting into vessels underwater can create gases that explode. Abrasive grit blasters can lacerate and force water into limbs, requiring amputation because of severe infection. Welders can suffer electric shocks. Inland diving exists. Divers enter water towers, sewage plants, nuclear power plants, and very long pipes deep underground where one can barely turn around. There is extensive diving science and medicine, pressure, decompression sickness, gas partial pressures and gas mixes, and differential pressure. One might think they can progress to saturation diving once they gain experience and begin earning six figures, and they can, but they must accept an increased risk of developing bone marrow necrosis and the possibility that the small pressurized habitat or pressurized vessel lived in for weeks at a time could explosively decompress with occupants inside. As far as I know, commercial diving is still responsible for one of the most gruesome workplace accidents ever, when a dive bell popped loose from a pressurized habitat or pressurized vessel and explosively decompressed it and its occupants. There are also all the hazards of being on an oil rig or boat to worry about. Story 47. I was a freight train conductor. It was the saddest group of people I have ever worked with, and the managers were nasty and duplicitous. The work was dangerous, dirty, loud, and stressful, and the 100% on-call schedule was insane. Riding the equipment was kind of cool when the weather was tolerable, but I am much happier at my new job for much less pay. Story 48. I guess I'll go into nursing. My wife makes good money doing it. It's not that people are unwilling to do the work. There simply are not enough people doing it. I was hoping to find a new career here, but most of these jobs sound exceptionally dangerous except for air traffic controller. Story 49. Cell tower climbers spend hours, hundreds of feet above the ground, hauling gear in the wind while clipped to a ladder. The pay makes sense once you try a climb. Story 50. Lift and elevator mechanic. Earn a high income while on call and enjoy excellent job security because the pool of qualified workers is small. Story 51. The highest paying jobs usually trade money for sanity or safety. If you rarely see family, gamble your health, or sleep in metal tubes, the paycheck is hazard pay for your life. Story 52. Ironically, blue-collar jobs such as plumbers and electricians pay much more than we might think. Story 53. I am a mariner. I was promoted to captain after 22 years. I serve on a government ship. It is not that bad, but it does take a toll on family life if your family is not used to it. I meet many people in Seattle who say tugboat operations are hiring. If you are interested, I have heard good things about Western Tug and Barge. Prior service in the United States Coast Guard or the United States Navy is helpful, but honestly I think they are just looking for bodies these days. You could work for a fisherman for a few months to gain experience if you need to. Story 54. Way too many people consider $100,000 per year to be an absurd amount. That is not even above the poverty line in San Francisco. Story 55. Prostitution? I guess 99% of people are not willing to do it. Story 56. You would be surprised how much paper mills pay. I have been at my job for 3 years and I make $100,000 a year working about 55 to 65-hour weeks. The biggest complaints are the rotating 12-hour shifts and the heat. Here in East Texas, our mill gets deadly hot during the summer. On the bright side, you get 7 days off every month, usually work 1 or 2 of them, and they allow as much overtime as you want. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.